7 motorcycle brands are desperately dumping millions of like-new bikes because they made a catastrophic miscalculation. While they are losing customers at an alarming rate, the real story is the one they hoped you would never figure out. They sold you on a future of rising demand and strong resale values. The reality is a market flooded with bikes nobody wants, and values that are in a free fall. In this video, we will analyze the fatal mistakes that led to this inventory disaster. We will show you which brands are most desperate to offload their bikes before the situation gets even worse. Stick around, because the final brand on our list is not just losing customers. It is facing a demographic collapse that makes its long-term survival almost impossible. Number 7. Yamaha. Yamaha's current predicament represents one of the most perplexing paradoxes in the motorcycle industry. On paper, they should be thriving. Their engineering is world-class. Their reliability ratings consistently outperform competitors, and dealers across the country are offering unprecedented discounts on new models. Yet showroom floors remain eerily quiet, and those discounts keep getting deeper by the month. Industry insiders confirm Yamaha severely miscalculated post-pandemic demand, ramping up production based on 2021's artificial sales spike. Now they are drowning in inventory with nowhere to put it. One dealer in the Midwest admitted they are selling certain models at just 5% above cost, a previously unthinkable scenario for a major Japanese manufacturer. The MT-07 and MT-09, both critically acclaimed motorcycles that should be flying off showroom floors, are instead gathering dust. Dealers are reportedly offering up to 22% off manufacturer suggested retail price on brand new 2023 models, the kind of discounts typically reserved for the desperate clearance of discontinued lines. Yet even at these prices, buyers remain hesitant. The core issue is not Yamaha's product quality, but their brand perception. In an era where social media presence drives purchasing decisions, Yamaha's conservative marketing approach has rendered them practically invisible to younger riders. Their engineering excellence means nothing when potential customers do not even consider the brand during their purchase journey. Further complicating matters, Yamaha's positioning as the sensible choice has inadvertently created a value trap. The deeper the discounts go, the more consumers question why the bikes are so affordable. In today's market, lower prices are often interpreted as signals of inferior quality rather than good value. It is a damaging cycle that has pushed Yamaha into a corner they are struggling to escape from. Number 6. Suzuki. Suzuki's inventory crisis has reached proportions that would have been unimaginable just 3 years ago. Walk into almost any Suzuki dealership today, and you will find rows of untouched motorcycles still wrapped in plastic, some manufactured as far back as 2022. Dealer networks are drowning in stock that cannot move, and the desperation is becoming increasingly apparent. The numbers tell a devastating story. Suzuki's days to turn ratio, the time it takes to sell a bike after it arrives at the dealership, has ballooned to over 180 days for certain models, triple the industry average. This inventory paralysis is forcing dealers into increasingly desperate measures. Many are now offering buy one get accessories free deals worth thousands, zero interest financing extending up to 72 months, and in some cases, dealer-subsidized discounts that cut directly into already razor-thin profit margins. Industry analysts point to Suzuki's fundamental failure to recognize how dramatically the market has shifted. While competitors adapted to changing consumer preferences with lighter, more technologically advanced designs, Suzuki doubled down on outdated platforms. The GSX-R line, once the gold standard for sport bikes, now feels antiquated next to competitors offering sophisticated rider aids, smartphone connectivity, and modern styling. This stubborn adherence to dated design philosophy has systematically eroded their customer base. Younger riders, the demographic that should be sustaining the brand for decades to come, view Suzuki as their parents' brand. Reliable perhaps, but fundamentally irrelevant to modern riding culture. The brand that gave us iconic models like the Hayabusa seems increasingly disconnected from what today's motorcyclists actually want. The strain is beginning to fracture Suzuki's relationship with its dealer network. Multiple dealers have reported cutting back on floor space dedicated to Suzuki, with some larger multi-brand showrooms relegating them to back corners, while prominently featuring brands that actually sell. This creates a vicious cycle. Reduced visibility leads to fewer sales, which further diminishes the brand's relevance. Number 5. Kawasaki. Kawasaki's current market position represents a particularly painful case of strategic miscalculation. Once the undisputed king of accessible performance with models like the Ninja series, Kawasaki now finds itself squeezed from all sides in a rapidly shifting marketplace. Their showrooms are becoming storage facilities for unsold stock as sales of their core sport and street models have flatlined. Industry data reveals that Kawasaki dealerships across North America are sitting on an average of 11.7 months of inventory, an astonishing figure considering the industry standard is 2 to 3 months. This inventory buildup isn't just a storage problem. It represents millions in capital that dealers can't recoup, forcing them into increasingly aggressive discounting that further erodes profit margins and brand value. The Ninja 400, once Kawasaki's entry-level bestseller, now routinely sits on showroom floors for 90-plus days before selling, often at substantial discounts. Even their flagship models like the ZX-10R are being advertised with manufacturer incentives that would have been unthinkable just 3 years ago. These aren't mere seasonal adjustments. They are symptoms of a fundamental disconnect between Kawasaki's product strategy and market demand. Kawasaki's traditional strength, building powerful, thrill-focused motorcycles, has become their vulnerability in an era of rising fuel costs and economic uncertainty. Their lineup remains heavily weighted toward high-performance models that are increasingly difficult to justify for cost-conscious consumers. A 300-horsepower sport bike might generate YouTube views, but it doesn't translate to sustainable sales when potential buyers are calculating the total cost of ownership. This stagnation has created a dangerous secondary effect, collapsing resale values. New Kawasaki owners are discovering their bikes depreciating at alarming rates, with some models losing up to 40% of their value in the first year. This depreciation spiral is creating a self-reinforcing cycle, where potential new buyers hesitate due to poor value retention, further suppressing demand for new models. Perhaps most concerning is Kawasaki's strategic confusion. Their attempts to diversify with models like the Versys and Vulcan series have delivered mixed results, leaving the brand without a clear identity or customer base. They are no longer the definitive sport bike brand, yet they have not successfully established themselves in other categories either. This positioning limbo leaves them particularly vulnerable as the market continues to contract. BMW Motorrad's current inventory crisis represents one of the most dramatic reversals of fortune in the motorcycle industry. Long positioned as the premium alternative to Japanese manufacturers, BMW now faces the embarrassing reality of surplus inventory and plummeting demand. Their showrooms, once showcases of German engineering excellence, are now overcrowded with motorcycles nobody seems willing to buy at the asking prices. The inventory situation has become so dire that BMW North America has quietly implemented what they call an inventory management program, corporate speak for massive dealer incentives designed to move product at any cost. Industry insiders report that certain models, particularly in the touring and adventure segments, are being sold with manufacturer support that effectively reduces dealer cost by up to 18%. Yet even with these hidden subsidies, sales volume continues to decline month over month. BMW's fundamental miscalculation was believing that premium pricing could be sustained indefinitely without corresponding value. Their flagship R1250 GS Adventure, with a sticker price approaching $25,000 before options, represents a financial commitment that younger riders simply cannot justify. When factoring in BMW's notorious maintenance costs, with basic services easily exceeding $800, the total ownership proposition becomes untenable for all but the most affluent riders. This pricing strategy has created a demographic time bomb. BMW's core customer base is aging out of motorcycling altogether, with the average BMW owner now over 50 years old. Younger riders, facing different economic realities than previous generations, are systematically choosing more affordable alternatives. Even those who can afford the initial purchase are deterred by the punishing cost of ownership that has become synonymous with the BMW roundel. Dealers are now taking extraordinary measures to move inventory. Anniversary sales, VIP pricing events, and exclusive financing offers have become permanent fixtures rather than special occasions. One multi-state BMW dealer group has resorted to offering 2 years of free maintenance, a tacit acknowledgement that service costs have become a major barrier to purchase. The company's attempt to position motorcycles as luxury lifestyle accessories has fundamentally backfired. Unlike cars, where BMW's premium positioning translates into status and resale value, motorcycles remain primarily recreational vehicles for most buyers. When faced with BMW's premium pricing, many potential customers are simply calculating the extra trips, gear, or experiences they could fund with the difference in cost compared to competitors. Honda's current market predicament is perhaps the most illuminating example of how a passionate fan base does not necessarily translate into sustainable business. Despite maintaining a dedicated cult following around models like the CBR series and the iconic Goldwing, Honda is facing an inventory crisis that threatens to permanently reshape their business model. Dealerships across the country report Honda floor plan financing, the loans dealers take to stock showrooms, stretching to unprecedented durations. Models that historically sold within 45 to 60 days now routinely sit for 4 to 6 months before finding buyers. And even then, often at significant discounts. This extended inventory turn is creating a cash flow crisis for dealers who must continue making payments on motorcycles gathering dust in their showrooms. The CBR 1000RRR Fireblade SP, Honda's flagship superbike carrying a price tag over $28,000, exemplifies this disconnect between engineering excellence and market reality. Despite winning accolades from the motorcycle press and offering racetrack performance that would have seemed impossible a decade ago, dealers report these models sitting unsold for months. The handful of riders who can fully exploit such capability are choosing track-specific bikes, while the vast majority of street riders cannot justify the cost for performance they will never utilize. This inventory pressure is forcing Honda dealers into increasingly desperate sales tactics. Honda Days sales events, once reserved for seasonal transitions, now run almost perpetually. Zero-down financing, factory rebates, and dealer-subsidized discounts have become standard rather than exceptional. These measures temporarily move inventory, but erode both profit margins and brand prestige in the process. Honda's engineering-first philosophy, once their greatest strength, has become a liability in today's market. Their relentless pursuit of technical perfection has created motorcycles that solve problems modern riders do not actually have, while failing to address the issues that truly matter to today's consumers: accessibility, value, and relevance to everyday riding conditions. Perhaps most concerning is how Honda's new bike pricing has inadvertently strengthened their own used bike market. Many potential Honda customers are finding 2 to 3-year-old models at 50 to 60% of new sticker prices, with the same reliability and performance metrics. This value proposition is impossible for dealers to counter, creating a situation where Honda is effectively competing against itself and losing. The result is a brand with passionate advocates but insufficient customers. Honda owners love their bikes and often become lifelong brand loyalists, but their numbers are dwindling as fewer new riders enter the ecosystem. A cult following without growth is simply a shrinking customer base, a reality Honda's executives seem reluctant to confront. Harley-Davidson's current market position represents the collapse of what was once considered the most unassailable business model in the motorcycle industry. For decades, Harley-Davidson sold its customers not just motorcycles, but a promise that their bikes would retain value better than any competitor, effectively functioning as investments rather than depreciating assets. That promise has now been broken in spectacular fashion. The data from auction houses and private sales tells a devastating story. Late-model Harley-Davidsons are now routinely selling for 35 to 45% below their original MSRP. After just 2 years of ownership, depreciation rates previously unheard of for the brand. This collapse in residual values has shattered the investment narrative that sustained Harley's premium pricing strategy for generations. This value deterioration creates a cascading crisis throughout Harley-Davidson's ecosystem. New buyers, seeing the rapid depreciation of recent models, are increasingly unwilling to pay full retail for new bikes. Existing owners, discovering their investment is worth tens of thousands less than anticipated, are delaying their next Harley purchase or exiting the brand entirely. Dealers, caught in the middle, are watching their new bike margins compress while simultaneously dealing with trade-ins worth far less than owners believe. The root cause of this resale catastrophe is Harley-Davidson's fundamental failure to address changing demographic realities. Their core customer base, affluent baby boomers, is aging out of motorcycling altogether. The median age of a Harley owner has now surpassed 55 years, with many core customers entering their retirement years when downsizing becomes a priority. This has flooded the market with used Harleys at precisely the moment when the next generation of potential buyers is choosing lighter, more affordable alternatives. Younger riders, facing different economic circumstances than previous generations, are systematically rejecting Harley's heavyweight cruisers. The company's traditional selling points, American heritage, unmistakable sound, mechanical simplicity, hold little appeal for riders who prioritize efficiency, technology, and value. The demographic that should be sustaining Harley for the next 20 years simply isn't materializing in sufficient numbers. This generational abandonment has forced dealers into increasingly desperate measures. Showrooms that once sold Harleys at full MSRP with waiting lists are now advertising managers' specials and closeout pricing. Factory-supported incentives like reduced-rate financing and cash allowances, once rare for Harley-Davidson, have become permanent fixtures. Some dealers report accepting trade-in values that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago, just to move aging inventory. Perhaps most damaging to Harley-Davidson's long-term prospects is how this inventory crisis has exposed the fragility of their premium pricing strategy. When customers actually calculate the total cost of ownership, purchase price, depreciation, maintenance, and insurance, the Harley tax becomes impossible to justify on rational grounds. Without the promise of strong resale values, the entire value proposition collapses. Number 1. Indian motorcycles. Indian motorcycles represents the most acute case of inventory crisis in today's motorcycle industry, facing not just a sales slowdown, but an existential threat to their very survival. The revival of this historic American brand was built on a straightforward premise, offering a premium alternative to Harley-Davidson with superior performance, more modern engineering, and distinctive styling. That premise now lies in ruins, as dealers struggle with unprecedented inventory levels and collapsing demand. The numbers paint a grim picture. Indian dealerships are reporting an average inventory supply exceeding 300 days, meaning at current sales rates they have enough motorcycles to last nearly a full year without ordering a single additional unit. This inventory paralysis is forcing drastic action. Models like the Chief and Challenger, introduced with premium pricing and bold sales projections, are now being advertised with discounts of $3,000 to $5,000, desperate measures that still are not generating sufficient buyer interest. Indian's fundamental miscalculation was building a business model that targeted the same demographic as Harley-Davidson, without recognizing that this customer base is rapidly disappearing altogether. Their core models, heavyweight cruisers and tourers with price tags routinely exceeding $20,000, appeal primarily to riders in their 50s and 60s. This is creating not just a sales slowdown, but a demographic cliff from which recovery may be impossible. The statistics on rider demographics are merciless. For every new motorcycle customer under 35 entering the cruiser market, approximately 4 existing customers over 55 are exiting. Indian, like Harley-Davidson, faces a simple but devastating math problem. They are losing customers faster than they can replace them. Their focus on heavyweight American cruisers has left them without appeal to younger riders, who overwhelmingly prefer lighter, more affordable, and more practical options. This demographic collapse has created a desperate cycle at the dealer level. Unable to move new inventory at anything approaching suggested retail prices, dealers are slashing margins to unsustainable levels. Factory support programs, originally presented as temporary measures to boost sales during slower seasons, have become permanent necessities just to keep dealerships solvent. Several multi-line dealers have already reduced their Indian showroom space, reallocating square footage to brands that actually generate turnover. The identity crisis extends beyond sales figures to the very core of what Indian represents. Their attempt to position themselves as the premium American alternative increasingly feels like a solution to yesterday's problem. As the cruiser market contracts, being better than Harley-Davidson becomes a Pyrrhic victory in a category fewer riders want to enter. Perhaps most telling is Indian's attempt to diversify beyond their core products. The introduction of the FTR series, a modern sports standard that shares nothing with their cruiser lineup, represents a tacit admission that their primary business model is unsustainable. Yet even these efforts appear too little, too late, as the company's public brand identity remains firmly anchored to heavyweight cruisers. The most alarming indicator for Indian's future is not just today's inventory glut, but the complete absence of a viable pathway to demographic renewal. Polaris, Indian's parent company, has the financial resources to weather short-term sales fluctuations. What they cannot manufacture is a new generation of customers willing to embrace heavyweight American cruisers at premium prices. Without that customer pipeline, Indian faces not just a temporary sales slump, but a fundamental threat to their long-term viability. What we've witnessed isn't just a temporary market correction. It's the collapse of an entire industry's business model built on false promises and demographic denial. These 7 brands sold us myths about rising demand and stable values while ignoring economic reality and changing rider preferences. The warehouses filled with unwanted bikes aren't just inventory problems. They are monuments to strategic failure. The truth is inescapable. Manufacturers that cannot deliver authentic value, technological relevance, and sustainable pricing will not survive what is coming. This isn't just about discounts. It is about which brands will still exist 5 years from now. The motorcycle industry is facing its most brutal reckoning in decades. Do you believe these brands can recover? Or is this just the beginning of a larger collapse? Which manufacturer do you think will disappear first? Subscribe now because our next investigation exposes how dealerships are hiding their true financial condition while facing unprecedented closures nationwide.